All right, I see the red blinking lights, so we're good. Welcome, everyone. As Edwin said, we've got a couple of coordination platforms here today. I drew the long straw or the short straw, depending on how you look at it, and get to go first. So I'm going to talk about BIM Track. So a quick look at the agenda. Going to sort of talk about who BIM Track is. We'll talk about the platform. I'm going to be brave and jump into a live demonstration. And then at the end, we'll have some time for question and answer. My name's Carl Storms. I'm the technical solutions lead with BIM Track. Relatively new, about a month and a half with BIM Track. I've an architectural technologist by trade. I've done residential commercial architecture, BIM, VDC on the contractor side. Most recently spent some time with Reseller than Imagine It. So a little bit of everything. The joke we like to use is well-rounded when it comes to the BIM industry. But enough about me. You didn't come here to learn about me. You came here to learn about BIM Track. So a little bit about BIM Track. BIM Track is actually the solution. It's the software. BIM1 is the company that creates the software BIM Track. They're a BIM consultancy that performs mostly out of Quebec, consulting, projects, implementation, strategy, the whole 9 yards. And a few years back, they ran into a problem on one of their projects where communication and issue tracking was a thing. So a couple of the brilliant minds there got together and came up with what is now known as BIM Track. So the challenges that we face in the AECO industry, I'm sure they won't be new to many of you out there in the crowd watching or in attendance. You'll see that just because we have something that's designed doesn't necessarily mean that we can build it. And I love the nice little example that we have here. Great place for a pillar in the middle. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the similar images out there of the light post going through the balcony, the toilet stall that's only halfway through the door. Lots of these things that we come into play. And a lot of times when we talk about this, we think about coordination, we think about clash detection. And that's really what we're talking about here today. When we're working on projects, small, medium, and most certainly when we get into large, we have the idea that we're dealing with all sorts of different stakeholders. There's different organizations, different companies, different disciplines. We have files, we have emails, we have all sorts of stuff moving back and forth. And we really need to have a platform so we're able to wrangle all that stuff in, herding cats, as we like to say, and have the ability to keep track of all that we do. And that's where BIM Track comes in. So some of the things that we run into when we're doing model coordination, we're looking through, of course, we're going to find things that are missing throughout the stage of the project. Perhaps, you know, we think we're almost done. The owner changes their mind. The architect changes their mind. You know, anyone can decide that perhaps it's better if we move this door a little to the left. Always getting our RFIs in place. Once we actually start working through the process, we have the building under construction. We're going to find defects, things that on our punch list that aren't quite there. All of that ties into the actual data. Data is the material of the day, if you will. What we're all doing more with less, so we need to be able to access and analyze the data that we have. And all of that comes into play with once we actually pass that over to the owners. What are they doing with the information? How do they access that information? So all of this ties into the platform for being able to use BIM Track as your source to access all of your issues, all of your communications while working inside of a project. So whether that be in your authoring or coordination tool of choice, Revit, Tekla, Navisworks, Plant 3D, or if you're just using the viewer on our web platform to take a look and coordinate that, all of those things are at your fingertips to allow you to do your coordination in your platform of choice. So what we're not trying to get you to change your workflow, we're trying to make your workflow a little easier in your tool of choice. So that sort of brings us to what I'm sure a lot of you would agree is a fairly common workflow when we're collaborating on a project. So we're going to have a BIM manager, and we all know that there's many different names that encompass a BIM manager. coordinator, VDC coordinator, BIM coordinator, project lead, team lead. We all know there's many different things. The idea is there's typically a group of people or a person that's in charge with getting everything in place, looking after that project, and then vetting it out to the rest of the team. We get into all of our people that are involved in the projects, the architects, the engineers, all those people that are going to go through and do the design, review any clashes or coordination come into play. And then they're going to take all of those things that they found, and those are going to get passed along to the modeler, the people that are actually boots on the ground, taking a look at all that stuff and making the changes. Let's move that door 6 inches to the left. And then, of course, we start that whole process all over again. And while it's a necessary evil that we let the process take its course, we want to allow that coordination. We want that organic ebb and flow of designing to happen. There's a lot of time wasted in between the process, waiting from one person to do something else when we're getting that place. And we're trying to prevent that. We're trying to find a way that we have the ability to cut down those waiting for answers, to cut down waiting for somebody to do their markups, to cut down waiting for somebody to upload content into a location. So if we are working with the BIM Track platform, what this allows us to do is to have that one central location where we have our communication hub. So we have the ability that our BIM manager, our BIM coordinator, they have the ability to do their clash detection in their platform of choice, to take those clashes, assign them to issues, push them out to who needs to correct those options or those issues, as we will. Of course, we have the modelers with boots on the ground, the people that are sitting there to make those changes. Again, as I mentioned before, the ones that are going to be moving that door 6 inches to the left, replacing the column, adding a column, whatever the case may be. And then we have all the people that are going to be keeping track of the process. Perhaps they're not the ones that are doing the coordination. Perhaps they're not the ones that are doing the modeling, but they're the people, the owners, the principals, the people that have a stake in the project, but might not be specifically involved at that particular juncture. They want to be able to see what's going on as well. They want to be able to add their comments, their 2 cents, and make sure that they're put in place. And those people may not be working in a BIM software, so they have the ability to join in and take part from any web browser of their choice. So that is the 30,000 mile high perspective of what BIM Track does. But I know everyone loves PowerPoint, so I'm going to just take a second here to jump out of the PowerPoint, and we'll go ahead and hop right into the actual platform. All right. So here we are inside of the BIM Track web platform. BIM Track is a hub-based platform. So essentially what that means is that you purchase your license 10, 100, however many you need, and you have unlimited projects, named users, 10 people for 6 months. You pay for that acquisition and have as many projects as you want. All of that gives you access to a particular hub. So as you can see here, I have access to 3 hubs. You could have access to 3, you could have access to 20, however many you've been invited to. And then inside each hub, you have access to a certain number of projects. So the projects are where all the nitty-gritty happens. In here is the dashboard where everyone lands on their own homepage, sees the information that they want to kind of see some of those analytics that we're talking about. I'm going to jump into the authoring tools. We're going to take a look at Revit. We're going to take a look at Navisworks. But before we jump in there, one of the things that I wanted to show sort of off the bat is the integrations. So the add-ins that we have. So if you're working with any of these particular authoring tools, so you can see we are invested in the Autodesk realm. So Revit, Navisworks, many of the AutoCAD products, so MEP, Architecture, Civil 3D Plant, as well as Tekla Structures, gives you an add-in right into your authoring platform of choice, and you can work directly inside of there. We have other integrations that come into play that take advantage of our open API. As someone that spent many years working with Clarity, I have a fondness for the Imaginet Clarity integration. While still relatively new, This integration gives you a couple things that people had been asking for. It gives you the ability to automate a bunch of tasks using the Clarity server. So anyone that's used Clarity will understand that. It also gives us the ability to back up our BIM track information using the automation routines inside of Clarity. Procore is another one. While still in beta, you can get access to that. A lot of people using the Procore integrations to use issues to RFIs and back and forth. Inside of it, if we have time, we might take a look at the Power BI integration later. And we're also using the BCF, so the BIM collaboration format, which means that even if we have a product that you're using that doesn't have integration, you can still use your IFCs and BCFs to view those issues from open BIM products like we see here. All right, so let me jump inside of Revit. So here inside of Revit, this is our little doc, our little add-in that gives us the ability to have access and to create issues directly inside of our platform. As you see here, I'm currently organizing or taking a look at our issues based on numbers. So they're organizing by the particular number that we're in there. We can always use a filter to organize those issues however we want. So we have our entire team of issues inside of here, but right now I want to put out those fires that really need to get looked after. So perhaps I'm going to go to my priority and I'm going to look for my critical issues and I say apply. So now I've got rid of the clutter. I have those particular issues that I need to deal with right away, and I can go ahead and take a look at those. And as I mentioned, in this particular instance, I'm just showing my priority. All of these things like the priorities, they can be set in your user interface when you're putting in place. So maybe instead of critical, high, medium, and low, you're using 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can always set those up as you need to be for your project. Likewise, with the coloring, you can choose any coloring scheme that you want. Perhaps you don't like red as critical, you want something else. You can certainly choose that when you set it in place. And the nice thing about these is once you've spent some time in the platform, you decide, okay, I think I know my workflow. You can then set up a template inside of the admin portal that gives you the ability to have your coloring, your statuses, all those things that you like at a moment's notice. You just apply that template and then it's set up. It also allows you to have multiple templates. So if you have I have an institutional template, I have a residential template, I have a school template, whatever the case may be, you can have those setups because in some instances I may have different needs or desires than what I need with a typical workflow. The other cool thing that we could do inside of here is because we're using the shared coordinate system, all of our different platforms, whether we're working inside of Revit or Navisworks or even in the web platform, understands where everything else is. So for example, if we're looking at this particular header issue, I can click on View and Model, and it's going to take me directly to where that information is inside of the platform. So even if you see here, if I click on this, this is the actual issue that was created, and it just so happens it was created in the BIM Track viewer. And I can tell that when I hover over it, it says BIM Track viewer. We also have the ability to have multiple versions of that in place. So if we happen to have to tweak it or show something different, we can create a different viewport, if we will, in place. So if I want to zoom right in and I want to make that be what people see, I can select inside here and I can add that viewport into my project. And as you can see here, I have access to it. We also have the ability to make comments. So the whole idea is, well, sure, it's great that I see that I have a header there, and yes, it's great that I clicked a button and it took me right to it. We then also have the ability to make edits to this, which means that I can come in here and I can change things, assign to people, I can change disciplines. I also have the ability to add in comments. So for example, this has been fixed and I can post this. We also have the ability to take screenshots of what we need to do, to validate that it's actually been fixed. We can add comments, post it inside here. And this gives us the ability to have sort of that running understanding of everything that's happened inside of this process. The other thing that I always like to sort of take a moment and discuss here is we call it issue tracking. We talk about issue tracking, and a lot of times when you say the word issue, people automatically assume that that means there's a problem, there's something wrong. There's an issue because I'm missing a door. There's an issue because the column is the wrong size. There's an issue because there's a hole in the drywall. And while those absolutely are all issues, it doesn't have to be an issue that we're using inside of the software. We have a lot of design firms that will use this as the way that they run their weekly design meetings. So on Monday, the principal will come in. He'll go ahead and assign Sarah the third floor to do. He will assign Tom to do the elevations, and will assign Sandy to do the shafts. Throughout the course of the week, they make their changes, make their updates. They can add comments inside of here. The principal then on the evenings can go into the web browser or his platform of choice. He can make markups, he can make comments, and everything gets tracked right here for the life of that thing. So we have the ability to do those design review meetings right here inside the platform. And whether you're working in Revit or Navisworks or in the web viewer, everything's sort of encapsulated in one spot. The other thing that I like about this is we also have the ability to use the @ feature. So I can say @ say Carol, what do you think? And then I can post this in here. But what the @ does is that sends a notification directly to Carol, the consultant. She will get an email notification, and then she can come in and add her information inside of here. So again, we have the ability to keep that conversation, to keep that communication going in one location. And once we've finished, we always have the ability to add attachments, PDFs, images, videos, whatever we want to add in place. And then we have the running history of everything that's happened inside of here. And again, the comments, the attachments, and the histories are available in whatever platform you want. And then when you're finally finished, you just hit publish, and all those things that we did here get pushed up to the cloud, and everyone has access to them. If we're navigating around, again, something else that we could do here that's pretty cool. We came into this issue, we saw it, there's the wrong side. So I can select this particular beam here. So it's a 12 by 16. This should be the same thing. So I can select that. I can come in here and quickly make that change. So now I've made that change. Now that I've made that change, I can go back into here. I'm going to take that image to show that I've made that change. Save it in place. We said we'd fix it today. Now it's fixed. Now that we fix it, the next thing that we can do is we can now come in here and say, instead of in progress, it's ready to be fixed in review. I can notify who I want to go. So I have to send it to Carl. He's going to validate that, and then I publish it. One thing that I like to point out that we like to see as a workflow is you may have saw, and actually you don't see, that's perfect. That inside here, me as Eric the engineer, or Erica, I should say, I don't have access to actually close the issue. So I can say ready to fix and review, but since I'm not the person that is running the project, usually we recommend that only those BIM managers, those consultants that are running the project are the ones that have the ability to actually close an issue. That way somebody can say ready to fix, I say publish, that status goes through. And now if I hop over into the web browser, I click into my issues, you can see that I am logged in as Carl here, not Erica. I'm going to scroll down and use my filter again, just so that I can find my priorities of all the critical ones. There's my wrong header that we were just looking at. I pop that into place. And you can see that we now, sorry, was there a question there? No? Okay. So you can see that we now see that we have it ready to fix. I come in, looks good. I can post that. And because I have the right permissions, I can now go in here and I can officially close this. I can say closed resolved because I have that permission. Shown just down to low, hit save. and then we finish that up and we're good to go. We put that in the project. So we have that ability to do that. And you can see, we could very easily see that information that goes from one platform into the other. Say, for example, we are in here, since I'm in the viewer now, and we're the owner, or perhaps we're the job captain. We don't work inside of Revit or Navisworks, but we need to keep abreast of what's going on inside of the process. So now I can come in here and start turning on my IFCs to see what's going on inside of our project. So now we've got our content turned on. Like a lot of viewers that are out there, very similar. We can navigate, we can move around, we can zoom in and out. You know, the more we zoom in, the more information we get to see inside of here. You know, we definitely see that there is definitely a clash here. So we can very quickly create an issue by just simply going to the Issues tab, create an issue. We have a couple options of either create an issue or localize. The main difference here is that if we say create an issue, it's basically a screenshot of this entire area. If we localize the issue, it allows us to put a little dot, a clash sphere right in this spot that gives us an exact location of the issue that we're looking at. In this case, we see that it travels through many things. So I'm going to just create a regular issue. So I say create an issue. It takes that location. I add in my information. I could type, add a description. We can give it a status. And again, all of these statuses are configurable based on what you need it to be. We can assign our issue. So this is definitely a clash. You'll also notice that we have a few of these asterisks. Asterisks essentially means that it's something that has to be filled in, whereas something that isn't asterisk can be not filled in. So it's going to be mechanical and structural. Zone, again, you can set it up. This is my mezzanine. And then I'm going to assign to my builder. And then we've assigned that issue and put it into place. We now have access to be able to do that. And if I just quickly pop into, let's say, Navisworks, for example, same project, I quickly sync that up, and you'll now see that we have the ability to see that inside of my model. Now, I do know that I have a roof turned on inside of Navisworks in my architecture, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide that, and then I'm going to hide my structure. And so now when I go say view and model, it's going to take me exactly to where that duct was right here that's running through, that we can see we have that ability. So it gives us the ability to go and see what we have and where it comes into place, and we can see that directly from there. We can zoom in, you know, take another one of those, update our viewpoint. Lets me do it here. So now you see we now have those two viewpoints in place to give me access to that content. Quickly jump back into here. So that gives us the ability to see that we can see through different platforms. We can see what we were able to do and view it inside of the web browser, and just keeping mindful of the time here. A couple quick more things to show. We can also do 2D and 3D at the same time. So if we go into our sheets, for an example, and I turn on my mezzanine plan, this is going to give me access to a PDF version of the sheet. All of the models are IFC models inside of our viewer. All the sheets are PDFs. So as you can see, it gives me access to all of my viewpoints, all of my clashes. And we can also see, if I zoom in, that we basically have the sheet in the right place and time. So we have access. You can see the 3D model. We can also see the information that is on the 2D sheet that wouldn't be inside the model. If I use my view cube to navigate a little bit, you can sort of see that we've got that 3D functionality. And if we clip into our clip plane, bring on the top, I can even start adding a little more information. So now I can start seeing those information that I have in there in that 3D view. Again, I go and look down. I can now start seeing some of those things in 3D, as well as being able to read that information that comes through that 2D functionality that we put into place. And again, we could create an issue directly from here and be able to see what we want to do as we're working our way through when we put it into place. The other thing that I wanted to show here is the idea that we have the ability to do our analytics. So if I quickly hop into here and go into my reports, I can hit up here on print. It's going to print out a report. Now, in a second here, we're going to see a little print screen because it thinks I want to print the report, and I can actually physically print a report. But really what I'm looking for here is the intelligent PDF that it creates. So you can see it's now giving me information. It's showing me all of the different, who it was assigned to, priorities. Each one of these allows me to be interactive. We put into place. If I scroll down a little bit farther, you can see that we've got our issues that came into place. And if I scroll down all the way to 27, I think is the one that we were looking at with the header in place. So we get down, you start seeing that we've got these issues that are also interactive. So whether I'm doing this through the web interface or I'm actually looking with the actual PDF, when I click on this, it's going to take me directly to that issue inside our web platform. I have the web platform open, so it happened very quickly. If you were actually doing it through the PDF, it would fire up your web browser and take you to that, assuming you were logged in. But again, we have the ability to have those PDFs and look at our information directly. And if we just want to see the information, we don't necessarily need to print a report. Reports are great for a coordination meeting. We can see that right here in our dashboard using the metrics. It's the same thing. You can see we have these live bits of information about who they're to. Maybe instead of the person, we want to see the disciplines. So now we see all the different disciplines. I want to focus on mechanical. So now I see that I've got 18 issues with mechanical. I can see who they're assigned to. I'm more curious about the priority. So now I can see that I have 2 issues that are critical for mechanical. I can dive down a little bit deeper. I can see who they're associated to. And then once I get down to that essential issue, I can then go take a look at that issue and find all the information. So we're able to see this real-time information and sort of dive down into it and really see what it is that we're going through and seeing it has into place. And with that, I know we were trying to keep it to about half an hour. I would see if anybody had any questions before we turn it over to Dan.
Maybe we'll have some more at the end.
Absolutely, no worries at all. I will stop sharing and pass it over to Dan. And like I say, any questions, feel free to ask them later on. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Carl. Appreciate it. Let me get my screen shared here, and we will jump into things. I assume you guys can see everything there. We'll do that token question. So thanks for joining us, everyone, tonight. Much appreciated. And Carl, nice job giving us an overview of BIM Track. I'm going to be pretty quick with my PowerPoints because, similar to Carl, I'm not a huge fan of them. So I'm Dan McKinnon. I'm the Canadian National Manager for Revizto. I've been on board here for a couple of years. Before that, I've been working in the BIM consulting and in the reseller channels in both Vancouver and in Toronto over the course of since 2002. So pretty much the same year that Autodesk acquired Revit, and have been around for a while now. So what I'll do is I'm going to focus here on Revizto, and we're an integrated collaboration platform, and what is kind of important to point out about that is that we work as a platform that stands kind of by itself and gives these tools to all members of the project team. So we'll get into the software right away here. So here's a list of some of the people that are working with us in Canada. We work with most of the major general contractors, architects, and engineers. Similar to what you just saw with BIM Track, we work with a lot of applications as well. As you can see, Revizto, the idea that we built our platform around the idea that we want to democratize BIM. So we want to create a platform, have a platform that is in the hands of every member of the project team, that they can access the BIM project, whether it comes from from Revit, Navisworks, Tekla, Rhino, whether it's coming from Civil 3D or Plant 3D, it doesn't really matter. In fact, we've had a lot of clients that have used, who have done projects that have come from multiple sources. I recall an architect that we worked with in Toronto that was doing a residential tower. The interior of the building was done in Revit, and the envelope was being designed in Rhino. They were able to use Revizto to do the coordination between those two models. So we also support products like Bentley and Inventor, as well as we have integrations with Procore Box and BIM 360. Our idea here is that as an integrated collaboration platform, we give you a tool that will allow you to access all the project model sheets and data from wherever you need to do it. So I'm going to jump right into the project itself here. I'm going to start in 3D and talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to jump back to 2D because I think the relationship between 2D and 3D and Revizto is one of the special things that makes our software a bit different. So as you can see from the model that I'm in right now, this model came in from, it was a federated model from Navisworks, and the sheets came in out of Revit, and I think some of the sheets came in from Procore as well. And we use the Unity game engine, so it's a pretty smooth and a nice experience to be able to explore the project in 3D. And on top of the 3D geometry that you see here, we also bring in the metadata as well. So you're able to see all of that inside of Revizto. But like I said, I want to start with 2D, and we'll jump back into 3D in a minute. So I'm going to go into 2D. I have my PDFs of my PowerPoint right here in our 2D sheets, but I'm going to go to the floor plan. And as you can see, you've got a floor plan here that has some icons on it. And these icons all represent issues that have been identified in the project. The icons all have different information that they're communicating to me just by looking at them. The planes are 2D. The circles with initials in them are automated project or are automated issue stamps. And I'll talk about all those things in a moment when I get back to the issue tracker itself. So I can look at the project. I can look at any one of the sheets here. I can take a look at the sheet, and I can click and see the markups that have been marked up specifically on the sheet. Those pins, those issues I talked about before, every issue in Revizto sits in the X, Y, and Z coordinates. So you're able to see.
Your flow. I just want to let everyone know that there is some background noise, and it's coming from.
Oh, is there? Okay.
So unfortunately, it's outside of our control. But
sure.
I think we're just going to mute ourselves so that the recording is cleaner. Okay.
Oh, okay, we'll do.
Yeah, and you can continue. Thank you.
All right. Hey, no problem. So as I was saying, we've got all of these issues lie in the X, Y, and Z, and you'll see an illustration of that when I get into the actual issue tracking workflow in just a moment. But I want to talk about the 2D, 3D relationship that I was just speaking about. With Revizto, when we bring our sheets in from any BIM platform, Revizto automatically holds on to that relationship between the sheets and the 3D model. So the idea here is that with that idea democratizing BIM, we know that Revizto is going to be in the hands of people who don't normally use Revit or Navisworks, as well as people who work in Revit and Navisworks. So we wanted to have a very easy to use interface. We also wanted to be able to take a superintendent who doesn't spend a lot of time in a 3D application, or maybe no time, or perhaps a principal of an architectural firm who is on top of the project and communicating with the owner, but doesn't spend any time in Revit. And we want to give them the tools to be able to get into this project and explore it. So here's the 2D sheet, probably the way they would prefer to go through the project. But at any time, they can go up here to the right-hand corner, click jump to 3D, and they can click and take themselves directly into the model straight from the 2D sheet. And the real value of that is that it drives adoption in an organization. Somebody can use the standard workflow of marking up 2D sheets if they want, but know that they can get into the 3D at any given time. Now, Revizto also allows us to have overlays. So every single sheet that comes in, from a BIM platform, or we also have a manual process to apply this, automatically creates an overlay. So when I click on this icon, what happens is Revizto is smart enough to know that this 2D sheet should lie on top of the first level of the project. It should cut a section cut to that level, and it should line this 2D sheet up with the actual model. So I can go down here, I can see the 2D information, I can see the 3D model, I can pull that through if I want to get into the ceiling, or I can put it down here on the floor if I wanted to and detach that sheet. So now that I've detached that sheet, I can leave that as a guide as I want to maybe walk through, and maybe I found an issue related to this column here in the stairway, and I want to mark that up. I can simply create a markup by hitting the plus sign here. This pinpoints out where the direction is. Let's say I want to go into more specifics than that. I can actually use markup tools here to mark this item up. And I can create my issue here. And you'll have to excuse me, guys. It's 9:30 my time, and I get up typically at 5 in the morning. So we'll see how I do through this. My spelling will probably be suspect at best. So what I've just done is I've just created an issue. That issue automatically went into our issue tracker, and it captured the screenshot. It also allows me to navigate the 3D from here, and it also allows me to see the 2D sheet. And I'll get back into more detail with the issue tracker in a minute, but just so that you understand that when I go from any 2D sheet that I'm inside the project, that I have that ability to jump back into the issue tracker and save the 3D information with the 2D. So we also have other tools here where I can actually go through and take measurements. We've got a sheet compare function. So if I want to go and I want to compare this to an earlier sheet that was in here, I can compare here and see if there's any differences. There isn't on this particular one, sorry. And it will highlight these differences as well. So if somebody wants to work in a 2D or 3D workflow, they're going to be able to do that here in Revizto. So I'm going to jump back over to 3D, and we'll illustrate some of those things a little more clearly in a second. But I want to get into moving around and interacting with this 3D model. So as I mentioned, we have got in the model itself, we have all of the geometry. We also have all of the metadata. So if I click on any object in here, it doesn't matter if this came in from AutoCAD and MEP, if it came in from Revit, it doesn't matter. Whatever metadata is associated with any particular object in here, if I click on that object, I can see that information. Additionally, one of the things that really stands out about the way that Revizto works is that we aren't a web-based platform. So what that means is that we use the web to actually synchronize our project and be able to sync it to the rest of the project team. But I'm actually able to take any project that I'm working on, and I can decide that I'm going to download this for the field, and I can include every single bit of content that I have here. The 2D markups, the 3D markups, the sheets, the model. If I've got Procore documents or BIM 360 documents that are associated with it, I'm able to bring all of those out in the field, and I don't need a persistent internet connection. So when we've got a superintendent or a contract administrator, and they're down, let's say, in the 4th level of a parking garage, and they don't have an internet connection, they still can go through and mark up things. They can still take photos. They're still able to do their job, even if they don't have that persistent internet connection. So that's something really important to kind of highlight about the way that Revizto deals with that. Now, as a result, we give you tools to be able to work in the field. So for instance, like our map tools, I'm actually able to go in here, and similar to what I did with the 2D sheet, I can click on an area and jump into the model. But this is a nice way of being able to navigate if you're on a tablet without a mouse and you're out in the field. You can move around from that perspective. We also allow you to bring in all of your room tags as well. And once they're on, you can see them in the project. They show up in here, and as well, I can take any room tag and I can just simply teleport into a location on here. Now, we work with clients that come from just about every conceivable mix of software and workflow. So a lot of times you'll have somebody who's saving their views in Revit, or they've been saving viewpoints in Navisworks, and they still have value to that process and want to send that into Revizto to work with it. Well, we allow you to bring in your viewpoints. We also allow you to create viewpoints. And this gives you the opportunity to save specific views inside of the project. So if I've got a specific view that I've isolated that helps me to communicate a specific area to the rest of my team, I can save these as viewpoints, or I can even mark up from these perspectives. So let me see if I've got one here where I've got So you can see here, we just isolated we've got the mechanical, plumbing, and structure here. And this one here, we've got a color-coded mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural version of the model. So this gives us the ability to isolate these things. Similar to what Carl was saying, a lot of our customers will use Revizto to run their coordination meetings, where they're able to isolate the model, use Revizto, which is a non-destructive environment that they can move around in the model and not accidentally move something in Revit or in Navisworks, but instead they can walk through in Revizto and mark up things in that coordination meeting. I'm going to hit home. Everything that you see whenever I have a view in here is just impacting me. So I could have 200 people working on this project with me, but the view I have is just the view that I have singled out for myself. Now I'm going to take advantage of our laser ruler here, and I'm going to measure. I can use that and create an issue out of this. We also have measurement from 2 points. We can do minimum distances, spot elevations, and slope measurements in here. So the idea here is to give you tools, whether it's in 2D or in 3D, to get the kind of information that you need to communicate to your team or make decisions. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, is make sure that this integrated collaboration platform is the place where the communication all can happen. So the plus sign and the ST are both for creating issues, and I'll touch on those in just a moment when I get into the issue tracker. But I wanted to cover a couple other things in 3D about how you can interact with this model. So the scissors tool here gives me the ability to create section planes and section boxes on the model itself, and you can see it's just as simple as setting this against the surface and pushing it and pulling, and then I am able to explore the model with this added advantage. I can create an issue in this view. Like I said, I can create a box as well as a section cut. And when I hit my home view, everything is reset. So if you work in Revit or Navisworks every day, maybe you look at a section cut and go, okay, I do that every day. But when you consider, like, when I look at what our GCs are doing out in the field, I'll give you an example. We recently toured the Montreal Cardiac Center, and McGill was there, and they're the GC working on that project. So they had the site had been scanned as a point cloud. The building they were renovating there was scanned as a point cloud. They had an existing building that was part of the project, and in Revizto they had the legacy PDFs of the design. They had the scan point clouds in there, and I'll show you scan point clouds in Revizto in just a few minutes. And they also had all of their BIM models. So we were able to see those in the trailer, and we were able to walk the site with an iPad and be able to see all of these in the actual environment. And you could see how quickly it communicated design intent to the project team. So that's a big part of having that live interaction, that you can jump into the source of information that you need, whether that's 3D, 2D, point clouds, being able to get into that perspective to even look at them all at one time. But we also recognize that data is a big part of what you want to interact with inside of your project. So this cube actually activates our object tool inside of Revizto, and we have 5.0 will be coming out, our newest version, this spring, and that will we have a brand new object handling. Right now, we're able to itemize objects by their category in Revit and by the file types. But we'll have a lot more detail on that, not that I can disclose really right now, but just to let you know. But I'm going to show you what we can do right now, which is pretty cool. So right away, I've got the ability in this project to see all of the different categories of objects that are in here. Well, I'm going to go into the links. So you can see we've got multiple links that are on this project. I'm going to take the architecture. I'm going to make it transparent. I'm going to take my electrical. I'm going to make that green. I'm going to make my mechanical red. I'm just going to go orange. And my structural is going to be blue. So I have just, in a moment, color-coded these things. And I can go through and I can color-code specific object classifications as well. and be able to use this as a tool to do some of my visual checking. Now, we support bringing clash detection in from Navisworks and from Solibri, but sometimes those initial decisions before you're ready to get into that clash detection might require you to be able to get in the model and isolate some of these particular items so that you can see them better. Revizto gives you that ability to go in here and get a view or get into the model or the sheets to be able to answer those kind of questions. And just like I did before, I'm going to hit the home button. It's all going to be all reset. We support phases coming in from Revit. We can camera share, so you can see I've got some of my project team are on here right now. I can actually take control of their screen and walk them through the model and drop them off at a specific spot in here. This also works in virtual reality. So once this model has been pushed out from Revit or from Navisworks, it is now VR ready. We can, with one click, open this up with the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift and be able to go through this model in VR, and I can share that camera with them as well. So we've got the ability to get multiple people into this project and communicate with each other in a few different ways. Additionally, we can record videos with narration as well as another way to be able to communicate these things to the rest of the project team. So that's a quick view of 2D and 3D, but I'm going to get into the issue tracker, which, I mean, at the end of the day, there's lots of value inside of Revizto, but you know, I'm sure Carl would say the same thing about BIM Track, that at the end of the day, it's what you can do with communicating issues and communicating different design intents or construction issues that you find, and be able to get your whole team to be on board as soon as you can. And the feedback that we get related to using Revizto on a regular basis is that a lot of our clients, let's say they had a typical scheduled coordination meeting that would be on a Thursday in the week, and all these items would show up on the agenda over the course of the week, and then they get in that meeting on Thursday and they'd start to go through that. Well, with Revizto, because our issue tracking is real time, because somebody might post something right now and might immediately get feedback from another member of the project team, and the communication might go on in here, what ends up happening is it serves like a 24/7 coordination meeting. And a lot of the time, these items that you've identified at the early part of the week go through the process of communicating about the issue, suggestions for resolution, and then a number of them get solved, so that when you get to that Thursday coordination meeting, that agenda is a lot lighter and hopefully allows those expensive people that have to come into those coordination meetings to spend their time working about dealing with big picture items and not dealing with all the nitty-gritty of issues that have been found on the project. And that's the feedback that we get an awful lot. I know when we were, I was just out in Vancouver at the beginning of February. We had our first Revizto user and peer group meeting in Canada, and Ledcor had told us, based on a project they were talking about there at that event, that they had mapped the issues that they had resolved with Revizto had saved them $680,000 on a single project. So that's the kind of feedback that drives people to apply a better coordination and collaboration platform to their workflow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the issue tracking. So as I showed you before with that quick example that I made, we can have issues that are marked up in 2D. We've got issues that are marked up in 3D. We've got issues in here that are actually synced clashes that came in from Navisworks. So they come in with the information that came from Navisworks. And you can see here's a structural versus mechanical clash. Here's a screenshot of it. But I can go into the 3D model. I can change the visuals here related to the model and explore the model in more detail. I can also see where this corresponds on the 2D. But I mentioned earlier on that Revizto puts all issues in an X, Y, and Z coordinate. So even though that issue was identified through clash detection in Navisworks and is marked up in 3D with a screenshot here and this 2D image, you'll see here that I've got a mini index, and that index lets me open up all 2D sheets that interact with that X, Y, and Z location. So I can look at this in terms of the floor plan here if that's how I want to see it. And one of the things that comes from that process, that all of my 2D sheets represent the issues, my model represents the issues. What it means is all members of the project team that are working in Revizto are going to see issues regardless of which sheets or model that they're looking at. Because most of the time what you're dealing with is the non-BIM person is using Revizto exclusively. The BIM user, their workflow is going to be that they might have Revit or Navisworks on the other screen while they're using Revizto. So I'm going to go in here a second, and I'm going to go back to all my open clashes, and I'm going to open up this one here, and I want to show you that screenshot again. And I'm going to open up my Revit for a second here. Oh, I must have already done that anyway. Hold on a second. Let's bring it back to... Yeah, excuse me a sec. I hit something. Oh, don't be silly. There we go. All right. So we use a plugin to communicate between Revit and Revizto. I can export to Revizto from here, and I can choose what I want to include. So when I want to send the project out, I can choose what sheets and what level of detail I want to include with that. I can also put it on an export schedule and do the same thing. I can create issues directly out of Revit if I want to as well. But the other important part about this is that plugin lets us communicate between Revizto and Revit, or Navisworks, or AutoCAD, or Tekla, or whatever it is that you're using as your platform. So when I have this issue here in Revizto and it's time for me to resolve it, I click on the issue here in my issue tracker, and I go back into my Revit model, and it takes me right to that clash and isolates it for me so that I can make this into a working view and solve this problem if I want to. So the idea here is to work in tandem with the authoring tool that you want to use, but that you can use Revizto to do all of your actual researching and resolving of the issue. So let's create an issue and walk you through the process. I had created one manually before. This time I'm going to create one using our automated issue stamp so that you can see how that works. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say my issue's here, and I'm going to use that laser ruler that I showed you before, and let's say that that's actually supposed to be 7.4 instead. And I want, well, yeah, and I want to capture that particular issue. I could manually set that up and point to that particular issue, and not if I do it that way, I'm not. And we will try that again. So that is the way that a issue is created manually. And when I create that issue, I would then have to go through here and assign a priority if I wanted to, a deadline if I wanted to. I'm going to assign this to another member of my project team. I can give this one to Pat. I'm going to, I can add watchers to this. So let's say, for instance, Brett is the manager on this project, and I want him to be aware of what's going on here. So I can also go in here and I can add tags to break this down more clearly as to what I want to have on this particular issue. So this is where I can drill down. I can add files, photos, 360 photos. I can add a comment related to the issue here as well. Now see, Pat's already on here. He's just changed this issue from open to in progress. So I now know that he's working on this. So this happens all in real time. Pat's down in the Boston area right now, and I'm in the Niagara region. And Mark has jumped on here as well. And and well, then I better make that a private issue then. And Mark just indicated he doesn't want the owner to see that, so we'll make that one a private issue. So that's going through the manual process of creating an issue in Revizto. But like I said, I wanted to talk about creating a stamp from a stamp and show you the power of our automated stamps. So I've got this issue here. I'm going to click on this door so that I know that that door is what I'm covering. I'm going to take a stamp. I've found a door repair issue here. I put the stamp down. As soon as I put the stamp down, all those issues you just saw me have to, all of the parameters that I assigned to it, these have already been decided. That as we set this project up, we had established automatic rules for what we want a door repair to look like. So in this case, it's assigned to Mark. we already have watchers that are on it. I can go through here and still add commentary if I want to, or questions. I can attach files and photos, or I can go, well, in this case, I'm actually going to go over to our doc integration, so I can show you that. So we integrate with BIM 360, Procore, and Box. And what that means is that I can have documents, perhaps my contractual documents for Procore or on BIM 360 are coming from other members of my team. I can go in here and I can associate any one of these files to this and click this in and add this to my particular item. So I'm just going to put that text file in there and I'm going to attach it. So now that's been put in there. So you can see that we've got that ability to set that up a whole lot quicker as a result of the automated stamps. So automated stamps do a couple of main things for us. That they speed up the process, but from a BIM standard perspective, stamps really drive the standards on a project and make sure that all of the things that you might be setting up for your reports are going to be accurate, because nobody has to manually select a tag or go through the process of assigning it to a specific person. All of this stuff as well. Now you can see as I've been talking, Mark has been adding additional information to this. So we're seeing this move a little further along towards the resolution process. And that's all sitting here in our issue tracker, and it's communicated to, it was communicated to Mark when he was working on it. It's communicated to every one of the watchers as things change, and Mark is trying to apparently drive me to make this a private issue as well. Apparently he is. So I don't know who even invited him into this. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about our reporting now. I want to take just a moment to talk about that related to the project. So we have two different aspects of our software for reporting. We have a live dashboard, and then we have a report section as well. So with the live dashboard, I can go through and I can set up charts to show me pretty much anything I might want to see on the project. I can see these issues per user. Poor Brett is getting slammed here. You'd think that we would use this information, reassign some of this stuff so that he is not getting slammed. I can look at the progress from a specific date. I can look at issue timelines and so on. And these are all live reports. So say, for instance, I'm not interested in the solved. I'm only interested in open in progress. So I'm going to kill those so I can look at all these. So I've got the ability to interact with this chart in real time. And then our reports, I've got the ability to create reports that are sent out to members of my team, either as PDFs or as Excel. So I'm going to look at the open clashes for a second. So in the course of an open clashes, this is a PDF report. I can choose what I want to include in that report. In this case, it's picking any open or in progress clashes, and every Tuesday it's sending these out to Bob. So he gets a copy of this report that's sent to him. Now I'm going to show you a copy of a clash report that I pulled. It's not from this project, but it'll still illustrate what happens with these reports. Is that the report captures in here a thumbnail, one that we can download in high resolution. I can click and open this up straight in Revizto from this report. All communication that happens on this issue, any changes that have happened to the status of the issue, updates in the screenshots that have happened as well, all of this is in here. So when you consider the process of you're creating issues out of Navisworks, you might have a process where you're getting a screenshot, you're emailing it to someone, hopefully they give you some acknowledgement that they've gotten it, you're creating an XML report manually, and that report is obsolete by the time you finish getting it together. Well, in Revizto, all of this stuff is automatic. Typically, the feedback we get from most of our GCs or engineering firms that are using Revizto in tandem with their class detection process is that they will save 40 to 50% over using just Navisworks by itself for that process. So that's a big part of the workflow there. Now I think I've got just a minute or two here left, but I wanted to show you guys point clouds. So let me go into there. And so this model right now, you're going to look at it and all you're going to see is a Revit model because I have the point cloud turned off. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to turn everything on. So the fine folks at Victaulic, who we work with both in the US and Canada, use Revizto as part of their installation workflow. And as you can see, once we get a point cloud model in here, it behaves just the same as the BIM model does. So here I am going through my model right now, and you're seeing here is my BIM data, my BIM model. I can still get my metadata from it. Here is my point cloud information. I'm actually able to do things like, let's say for instance, I want to measure across to a point. From the point, I can go from the point cloud, I can go from the BIM, and I can measure from these in the same environment. So, you know, we see this a lot for construction verification, where people will scan the environment and compare it to the BIM, make sure that your connection points are lined up, make sure you've got space to bring a piece of equipment in here. But similar to what I showed you before in Revizto, we don't isolate any particular aspect of this. We're not a suite of products that all barely talk to each other. Everything is in the same place here. So this means that I can go through here and I can say, okay, well, I actually want to take a look at this 2D in conjunction with the 3D in conjunction with the point cloud all in one environment. So do you think if somebody is trying to figure out what they're going to do on site, that they've got enough information when they can bring the 2D, the 3D, and the point cloud in the same environment like this? And if this doesn't match up, they've got the ability to create an issue here. And that issue goes into our issue tracker. But what that issue has just done is somebody has gone to the trouble of marking this up, but the person who has this assigned to them, oh, sorry, I'm the only one in this model. The person who has this assigned to them is going to be able to see the screenshot that captured the 2D, the 3D, and the point cloud. They can go in here into the 3D and actually explore this. They can go in here and they can turn off the 2D if they want, so they can see this clearer. They're able to see how it relates to this 2D sheet, and they can see how it relates to other 2D sheets. So the idea here again is that we're trying to give our clients the tools that they need to be able to get to the heart of a problem right away and communicate it correctly and accurately to the rest of the project team. So I think that that's pretty much what I was going to cover. We're sitting at 5 to 10. How are we doing for time here, Edwin?
Yeah, I think we can open up for questions if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Is it okay, Ian? I might have to repeat it just so the recording has it. Yeah,
Yeah, please do. I can't hear them.
So how important is Navisworks?
How important is Navisworks anymore?
Navisworks is still does what it's always done really well. It's good for translating an awful lot of file types into and federating them in one spot. It still has a great clash detection process that you know, all of the construction engineering market, if they're looking to replace it, they haven't had the winning solution yet to replace it. So it's still pretty embedded that way. But you know, I think that you can read the writing on the wall that there are going to be new and more effective ways to do clash detection in the near future. And I think that as those things start to come together and prove themselves to be as reliable as Navisworks, then I think they'll have a chance. But in the meantime, you know, if you've got that old beat up Chevy that still gets you around and it does a few things that you like, sometimes it just might be you remembering that first date you had in the back seat or something. But you know, it may be more reminiscent than that, but there's still a place for it.
No one has questions. I have some. Okay, yeah. So how many people here use Revizto? So we see about 2 or 3.
How many are in the room, Edwin?
We have about 14 people right now in the room. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2, I think it's Elliston and Stantec is what I'm seeing. BIM Track, anyone using BIM Track or has used it in the past? Yeah, so we have ZGF, and who are you with? Modern Niagara, so okay, yeah, a trade, but XBIM 1, okay. So I actually have a question about that bit with BIM Track. When you were demonstrating, Carl, it looked like it was IFC models. So is that the way, or is it just in the background, like you have exporters from any of the applications?
Correct. When we're working with the web viewer, it's IFC. So whether you export the IFC with your platform of choice, or if you're working inside of Revit, similar to what Dan was showing when they were able to publish the model directly from Revit into Revizto, we have similar functionality that we can publish an IFC directly from Revit into our web browser, and it is the IFC. So in the browser, the model, uh, the geometry, sorry, is IFC, and then the issues, all that stuff comes from the BCF.
Yes. And I also, this is a question for both of you. It seems like these tools should easily pay for themselves within a few projects. How do you see communicating that ROI to people who are prospective clients?
You want to go, Carl, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think almost without exception, Revizto has a tendency to pay for itself right out of the first project that an organization is dealing with, particularly for architects and construction companies. ROI is a tricky animal, and I'm sure that Carl probably has a similar opinion on it. Is that, you know, when Marwin at LegCorp told me that, you know, had said at that event that they had a $680,000 benefit of using Revizto on that particular project that he was referencing. They had pushed out the data from Revizto into Power BI, and it set up a formula, and you know that formula is going to be based in reality, but it's also going to be based on some subjective considerations that they feel are the impact on it. We always get the response from people who are using Revizto on projects. The benefit proves itself right away. But yeah, I think ROI is a tricky thing because there's an awful lot of manpower and assumptions you have to make regarding it. But you know, I think not using a collaboration software platform, like I said, just with issue tracking and clash detection integration alone is going to save you 40 to 50% of the time you spend on clash detection, and that has a dollar value.
I think Dan made some great points there, and like he said, our typical workflow, whatever collaboration software you're using, is greatly improved when you use a product like BIM Track or a product like Revizto to really sort of herd all those cats and put it into place. Putting an actual dollars and cents number, you know, that's always tough to do. I always sort of use the example that when we're working with architects as an example, you know, if you use a process, it's going to save them time, so they have, I'm going to use 20% because it's a nice round number, you know, 20% extra time because of this process. They're not going to take Fridays off. They're going to use that time to design a better building. And in the end, there may not be a tangible number, but the architect got to design a better building. They feel better about the building. The owner gets a better building built because more time was spent on the design and less time on tracking down a missing column or a missing issue or somebody forgot something. So, well, it's hard to get the tangible value of that. As Dan said, I think the idea that using some sort of platform to keep track of your issues and in your collaboration is going to give you a better outcome in the end, and everybody's going to win from that.
you're used to this without the other team involved.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question is this of value to say a consultant internally rather than just in collaboration with say an architect or a contractor?
I'll take that, and I would say absolutely. The story that I told sort of about the designers that we have that use it as a way to organize, run, and make sure that their weekly work is done. So for them, it's a task management tool on top of issue tracking. So they're using it to assign work. They're using it to make sure that the work is finished. They're using it to make sure that what is signed is done. There's accountability for it. So there's a lot of people that found value using it internally over and above what they use inside of it. And really, when you think about it, when you use the platform and you pay for the hub and using it on a project, you can have as many projects as you want. So there's no harm to use it for your internal project coordination as well, because you have it, use it.
And very similar to how Carl feels about that is that, you know, that's typically a lot of our engineering and consulting firms are introduced to Revizto typically by coming on a bigger project that's being, you know, run by a GC or an architect, and then they're exposed to the benefits of working on it in that particular environment. And then, you know, typically one of the things that we try to do is we've got our customer success team, which come from a considerable amount of experience in architectural engineering, construction, and so on. And you know, we'll set up meetings with the appropriate member of our success team to help them figure out the application for themselves and their organization. And much like Carl said, that once you've got the licenses in there, it's easy to start using it on multiple projects and get the benefit across them. And you know, I think the accountability part of it is huge. The reporting part of it is also huge, that where there are people who rely on Revizto every day that spend all their time in the reports and use that to keep track of the other people. And there, you know, as we're fond of saying, shame is also a very powerful tool. And there's nothing like seeing a report that shows how many outstanding issues you have and how long they've been there to motivate somebody to get their acting gear.
Did you have a follow-up? Yeah. Okay. So maybe.
Yeah. I want to information about their pipeline or non-pipeline. What are the things that you guys are working on right now, or you know, the next thing that you're going to develop?
So yeah, so the question was along the lines of what is the current development within what you're able to share regarding your platform? So the next big things that you think are features that are beneficial.
Oh, you're going to make Carl and I say this in front of each other? Wow. Okay.
If you want, Dan, I'll go first.
You're working on the
I'm new enough that I don't know what's new and coming up. So
Okay.
Unfortunately, I get the get out of jail easy card on that one. I do know we're working on lots of things, but that's as much as I know. So I'm gonna blame that on the new guy card.
Oh, see that yeah, I don't get to do that. I just had so we've got a lot of ambitious and enthusiastic and items that we're very enthusiastic about moving forward with Revizto. Like I mentioned, probably the thing that I can talk the most about, we just went over all of these things at a global summit in February, and it was very this was our first opportunity as an organization to get all of our sales, our customer success team, which is our BDC team, and our developers all under one roof for several days as we discussed the direction of where our software is going. And, you know, I think that this object handling capability that we have coming forward in the spring is this 5.0 has an enormous amount of benefits that we'll be able to take advantage of in the years to come. But the biggest thing that it's going to give is it's going to give everybody inside of Revizto that opportunity to drill down into the specs and object data at a level that is similar to what you can do with Navisworks. But you're going to be able to do that to search and to be able to create search sets and be able to use that information to help you identify specific items at a level that we can't do currently. And you're going to be able to do that from both the desktop and the iPad. So that ability to actually go in there and isolate an area in Revizto of the model and be able to dissect what's actually in there and be able to itemize those items, I think is going to be a pretty powerful tool to our team, especially to give that to people out in the field as well. So a lot of our direction moving forward is about further cementing ourselves as an integrated collaboration platform that brings all of our project teams together and gives them the tools that they need to be able to interact with their projects, their owners, and all stakeholders on the projects. And I think that we have a lot of enthusiasm about it. I'm kind of babbling because I have a lot of things I'm very excited about that are coming that I just can't talk about right now. But Revizto has always had a pretty ambitious update schedule. We typically have 6 or 8 pretty significant releases a year. The couple of things that we have in front of us right now, we have 4 of them really within the next year, and that's going to be the bulk of what we can do because they're all super ambitious. That was my big answer that didn't say a whole lot. Sorry, guys.
The acquisition of per person per year, or can you get a company license with 20 or 50 users? Like for example, BIM 360 is $1,100 or $1,200 per person per year. What are BIM Track and Revizto doing to us in our initial bottom line? I don't understand it's going to save a lot, but is there network licensing, or is it I need a seat and you need a seat and you need a seat in order for us to do anything here?
So the question is along the lines of how does the licensing work, specifically with thinking of the different architecture firms, consultants. Do we have a floating license, or is it an assigned seat? Can you give us a little bit of overview on how that works?
Yeah, sure. So we sell our licenses in user packs. So you can get them down to small increments, or 10 or 20, 50, 100, 250, however you want. The price point goes down as you start moving up into larger packs. The way that Revizto's license management works, it's very flexible. You've got the ability to bring somebody in, invite them into Revizto, and let's say I've invited Tom, who's a trade, in to get his consulting on a job he's going to come back in 2 months to do. I could bring him in for a handful of days and put him on a license for my pool. Then when he's gone, I know he's not coming back for a couple months, I could disable that license and get that license back into my pool until such time as I invite Tom back in again. So there's a lot of flexibility. It's not, doesn't require getting a letter from the governor like an Autodesk move of a piece of software from one place to another. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, we've designed it knowing that you want to have other collaborators on the project. And if, for instance, you give the example, you mentioned both Ellis Don and Stantec were there. If Ellis Don and Stantec were working on a project together and Ellis Don was the prime on the project and they invited someone from Stantec, the person from Stantec could come in as a guest onto the project using their own license and wouldn't count against their license pool. So there's a fair amount of flexibility there. The idea ultimately is to make sure that everybody who you want to collaborate with can all get in there at a reasonable price. And it certainly isn't the same price as BIM 360, not by a long shot.
And from the BIM track side, very similar. We have packs of license 10, 25, 50 as you go through. They're user-based licenses. So if you have a 25 pack, you have 25 named users. If you need to swap out one user for the other, you can do that at any time. It's at your discretion. Unlimited projects for your hub when you put it into place. The one thing that's a little bit different from us is once you decide that you want to go to the enterprise level, you then get you're not held to a certain number. You start off with 100 users. Through the height of the project, you're at 200 users. 6 months later, you're back down to 100 users. Your build actual user number. So you're not kept at that 200 user level for the entire year of the project if there's only 200 users at a certain level. It also means that you're never out of licenses when you're at the enterprise level. So that's something that's a little bit different about our licensing when you hit the enterprise location.
Yes.
When you report flashes on the iceberg, whether it's on the flash in the result, like it's not being visualized in the 3D as like in a typical 3D model when you wireframe in the result. But when you actually see the 3D model with the result, it's kind of like an actual one, not the wireframe. So how we can automatically and directly transport that issues from iceberg to the result. That's why
Yeah, so the question was specifically regarding Revizto with importing from Navisworks. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like when you bring it in, it's a wireframe.
No, when we can put that.
Sorry, so yeah, so the clarification. View it's a wireframe view, and then when you view it within Revizto, you don't have that wireframe view. It's not a typical 3D view. Yeah. So is there a way to override that? Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand the question, because this model right here that I started with, this is a model that was federated in Navisworks and exported straight out of Navisworks.
Yeah, if you can show us maybe again the Navisworks issue that came, or the issue that came from Navisworks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so with any of the clashes that come in, essentially what you're looking at when you have a clash that comes in is that we bring in the screenshot that comes out of Navisworks. We have it translated here in the 3D so that you're able to find it and explore it here in the model. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that that's all we can do with it, because I can go into this model here and I can turn off the clash view and turn my solids back on again, just as simple as that. Or I can turn it into, or I can make it more transparent so I can explore through it as well. So yeah, Revizto, it's depicting a view that's similar to what you see in Navisworks in the screenshot, and it tries to give you the tools here in 3D to help you continue to isolate that out of the model. But like I said, I can turn that all off and be right in the 3D model again. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Or the question is, when you find the clash, if you preset like the structural mechanical issues, like, or is that something that has to be set up?
No, you could conceivably, you could send them over and assign them out of Navisworks, or you can send them over and assign them here in Revizto. I could tag them in here as well by a specific type if I wanted to, and use that to drive a report, or use that to drive a filter that I'd be able to see in. And one of the things I didn't mention about the issue tracking, just because of time, is that once this clash is put out into Revizto, and I go through the process here of, let's say for instance, I had a flex duct situation that came in as a clash, pushed out to me here. I saw it here and said, yeah, that's not really a clash. And I jot a line down, hey, flex duct, it's not a clash. And then I close this out here. The next time I run the clash detection and sync it up with Navisworks, it'll close that out as well. So there's a bi-directional link that's going on here in the workflow.
One more question.
I missed part of Carl's presentation. I'm excited that Revizto has VR now. First, does BIM Track have VR? And with the VR, is that a separate module or is it built right in and all I need is a pair of glasses?
Yeah, so Revizto presented the VR option. Does BIM Track have an equivalent? And can it be used? Sorry, what was the last word?
Is it
Oh, and if VR is an add-on module or if it's included and readily available.
Yeah, the VR is an integrated part of Revizto. We at this time, we do not have any modules. Everything you see, everything I talked about, it's all in the base Revizto integrated collaboration platform.
As far as on the BIM track side, at this time, we do not have any VR built into our capabilities. We do have an open API and we do have some possible integrations coming down the pipe in the near future that will take advantage of virtual reality. I've probably already said too much, but at the time we don't have any direct VR built into BIM track, but watch this space.
Yes, well, I just had one question that came to mind too. Is with the point cloud that was something that was presented on the Revizto, and is there an equivalent on BIM Track?
So because we don't store the information up inside of our platform, we're a cloud-based platform, we don't have access to clouds inside of it. However, we do have an integration, as we saw, directly inside of Navisworks, and Navisworks does a fine job working with point clouds. Revit as well, not quite as handy as working inside of Navisworks. So we do have the ability through either one of those to interact with a point cloud, very similar to what we saw inside Revizto.
Yeah, and similar for Dan, can you just explain what was the process for getting that point cloud into Revizto? Was it through Revit or was there more to it?
No, you can bring it in from Revit or Navisworks, but you can also bring it in direct either from native point clouds or from OBJ files as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, trial versions, are they period based or how do they work?
The way ours usually work is anybody who wants a trial, we'll sit down and give them a quick overview of how you use it, and we can set them up for a couple of weeks to try it out. But mostly, I would say for the bulk of the trials that we've run in Canada have been our proof of concept. So that's a 60-day period of time that you'll be given implementation training support from our team. We'll help get that project started. You'll have an unlimited amount of users for that period of time, and that will help you kind of determine how Revizto works for your firm on your projects and how many of your people need to be on board before you make a purchase decision.
So similar on the BIM track side, if you want to do a pilot project, we can set up with a trial run, but we also have a free version that's open to anyone. So you can sign up right now, go to the website, sign up for a free account, unlimited projects, unlimited time. The limit is 50 issues. So 50 issues is enough time to sort of give you an idea of how you want to use the platform, but it's a great way that anybody can sign up to try, whether they're testing it for their firm or for themselves, or they know that someone's going to invite them into a hub for a project that's starting up, just to get yourself familiarized to it. So free for all.
I have another question with you kind of both, I think, touched on the field aspect of this viewers. So is there a way to, like you said, like I can go to site and take a photograph or 360 camera equivalent and tag it to,
Yeah.
to it?
Yeah, the Revizto works in Windows, Mac, and on tablet devices like iPads and Microsoft Surface. I would say we have about half and half of the firms that I know are using one or the other in Canada. So inside of an iPad environment, your user interface is exactly the same. So you can jump from the platform to platform because we are username based. And in the tablet, you would be able to go in here and you would have an issue that you're working on in here. You would be able to click here and click photo, and you'd be able to take a photo right with the camera from your iPad or your laptop, and it would go right into the chat window here and be associated with the particular issue that you're calling out. And again, because we can download to the field, you don't have to have a persistent internet connection to use all the tools. Sorry about that, Carl.
That's all right. We are an internet-based platform, so unfortunately at this time we do need the internet-based connection. Although most job sites and most people have connectivity, whether it's through job site Wi-Fi or cellular connection. If you are 3 stories down the park gate, we are kind of out of luck in this scenario. But the idea is you log into the web interface, and whichever device you're using, your phone, your tablet, your computer, you can take an image with that and then attach it directly into the issue like we were showing on the screen. So that's how the process would work through BIM Track.
Awesome. I don't think we have any questions here, but I do know that there are some people connecting remotely. So at this point, I don't know if there's a way to unmute them or have them raise their hand or how this works.
They can unmute themselves actually if they want to. There's should be a mute right next to their name that they're able to get off there if they want to say something. But,
okay. Yeah.
all right.
We just have 6 minutes because it's going to get loud here again with renovations.
Okay, no problem.
I guess anyone from the online people connecting have a question, you can unmute yourself and speak. Or
It doesn't sound like it. I just wanted to take a quick moment here before we finish up to thanks Dan. I've learned a ton about Revizto here tonight, and to thank Edwin for putting this all together with BIM BC. I had an honor, and thanks so much for having me out be part of it.
well, thank you.
And likewise, Carl. Thanks for sharing what you guys do and giving me a much better understanding of what it is that you guys do. And thanks so much, Edwin, and the group there for having us in today. It's been an awful lot of fun.
Sure. Yeah.
Now my email's there on the screen. I don't know if Carl, if you want to flip yours up there too, if anybody wants to reach out to either one of us to, if you've got something that has your email address, Carl, I'll release my screen. So anybody who wants to capture that, take a photo or whatever, because I'm going to let the screen go so Carl gets to put his up too. So I'm not just pimping my stuff.
And I'll share both your emails if you're cool with that on our meetup site too.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Sure, that's fine by me. And there's a slide with my email, and the website is just bimtrack.co. So by all means, reach out, or Edwin can reach out to either one of us if you guys have any questions about BIM Track or Revizto or anything to do with collaboration. Dan and I'd be happy to help.
I also want to thank ZGF definitely for providing the space. Very much appreciated, and we had a mostly free of any technical issues. So thank you all for attending, and once we have the recording, we'll make sure to post it online, and you can feel free to share. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks,
everyone. Have a great night. Bye now.
Bye.